There is a particular kind of person who looks at something the entire world accepts as finished and sees instead a beginning. Not a better version of what exists, not a faster chip or a smarter algorithm. Something categorically different, something new. Peter Warren is that kind of person. And before you hear what he discovered, it helps to understand who he is. Because what Peter has built at ExoTech is, frankly, almost unbelievable. Almost. Because he has done the extraordinary before and more than once. Peter Warren is, in many ways, an Englishman born ahead of his time. At 17, too young to start medical school, he was already working in pharmaceutical research at Warner Lambert in New Jersey, studying radioactive rubidium uptake in heart muscle, with rubidium being a radioactive element used to study heart function. He had finished his education before his peers had started theirs. At Guy's Hospital Medical School at the University of London, then one of the top 10 medical schools in the world, he didn't just study, he discovered. While still a student, Peter developed a medical technique for making cuts heal without leaving a scar. It was later patented in the United States. He left medicine not because he failed at it, his professors said he could succeed with one arm tied behind his back, but because the world outside the classroom was calling louder. What followed was a career that most people would not believe if they read it in a novel. And in the interest of your time, we'll say this. Every great man walking this earth has a story that doesn't fit in a 5-minute video. So what follows are the highlights that matter most to you, whether you came here to evaluate an opportunity or simply because something told you this was worth your time. The year is 1983. Peter creates an import-export company, a field, by the way, in which he had absolutely no prior experience, and proceeds to cut the price of imported champagne in California to 1/3 of what it had been. His company becomes British Airways' biggest freight customer. His main customer, Safeway, pays him within 7 days, something they had never done for anyone in 30 years of business. Then Seagram, one of the most powerful drinks companies in the world, tried to shut him down. To make a long story short, Peter didn't hire a lawyer. He didn't back down. He built a PR campaign. Seagram didn't give up either. They went further, even attempting to change the law itself. But in the end, the governor of California vetoed the measure in favor of Peter. Now let that sit for a moment. This British entrepreneur, operating in an unfamiliar market, takes on a US corporate giant and wins at the level of state government. Hollywood would call it fiction, the kind that makes you lean forward in your seat, forget your popcorn, and wonder how on earth it ends. The Lincoln lawyer kind, where the underdog walks into a system designed to stop him, finds the one move nobody saw coming, and walks out having changed the game entirely. Most people would have stopped there, built on that, told that story at dinner parties and to their grandchildren for the rest of their lives. But Peter Warren had already moved on and wrote the next chapter on the other side of the globe. The year is 1993. Peter walks into Ukraine and Kazakhstan, countries in the chaos of post-Soviet economic transition, with $50,000 and no prior experience in distribution, and, just to be clear, where he did not even speak the language. 18 months later, he has 1,600 employees, 64 sites, operations in 3 countries, one in every population center of 100,000 or more, a peak annual turnover of $380 million, and an 80% market share. He did this while managing over $1 million in daily cash flow, almost all of it in actual cash, with soldiers standing guard. And might I add, did this while simultaneously changing Ukrainian tax law. As a foreigner, drafting a 200-page proposal that was passed by 2 parliamentary committees, the full parliament, 20 cabinet ministers, and signed by then-President Kuchma. And all of that in only 6 weeks. Now let's be honest, most government committees take longer than that just to schedule a meeting. Another testament to what happens when an extraordinary mind meets an unwavering will. These are not achievements that fit neatly into the vocabulary of conventional business. They belong to a different category entirely. They belong to someone who walks into situations he has never encountered before and walks out with the market. In 1996, Peter stepped away from his Eastern European operations and turned his full attention to a question that had been living in the back of his mind for years. Not a business question, a scientific one. What if computers didn't have to work the way computers work? What if, instead of forcing humans to learn the language of machines, you could build a machine that thinks the way humans do? Peter spent the next 3 years in deep research, reverse engineering the human data system, studying how people actually process information, store context, and execute instructions. Working from first principles in a way that the computer science establishment had never attempted. What he discovered was not an improvement on existing technology, it was a new class of machine. Something so fundamentally different from conventional computing that the Patent Office ultimately granted it the most foundational protection available. U.S. Patent 8,397,222b2. Peter describes the difference this way. Conventional computing is extraordinarily good at being a machine. ExoBrain is something else entirely, a machine that finally understands what it means to think. In 1999, he handed a rudimentary written description of the technology to a programmer, who took 2 weeks to read it and 3 weeks to build a working prototype. That prototype could change languages on command, change users on command, execute written instructions like send that to him by fax, correctly, independently, without being told how. And when it could not execute an order directly, it found another way. Almost everything that prototype did in 1999 cannot be done by today's technology, decades later. Peter has patented 5 separate inventions across multiple fields. One was bought by Oakley, a brand so synonymous with performance and innovation that it has outfitted everyone from Tour de France winners to Navy SEALs, and marketed through Motorola. Google tendered a $1.2 million offer for 3 other patents. An early, incomplete version of ExoBrain was tested by 585 people. 72% said they would buy it. Among teenagers alone, that number climbed above 90%. He has worked in 30 countries. He has managed organizations with 30,000 staff. He has handled multi-million-dollar cash operations. And in the words of a Swiss oil executive who oversaw one such operation, not a drop of oil or a cent of money was mislaid or lost. Today, Peter leads a core paid team with a broader network of over 1,000 people and more than 200 further experts waiting to join the company the moment funding lands. Together, they are executing a build plan that encompasses 11 divisions, 33 departments, and a product launch 2 years from major funding. Around him are some of the finest technical and business minds available, including IBM veterans, experienced engineers, and executives who left successful careers specifically to work on ExoTech. They didn't come for the salary. They came because they understood what Peter discovered and what it means. Now, there is a kind of investor who finds this video interesting, and there is a kind of investor who finds this video necessary. The first kind sees an impressive man with an impressive track record attached to an impressive technology. The second kind sees something rarer, a pattern. A man who has entered markets no one thought he could enter, who has built things no one thought could be built, who has changed laws, captured markets, and turned $50,000 into hundreds of millions, not once, but repeatedly, in completely different industries on completely different continents, and who has now spent decades quietly building the most ambitious technological discovery of his life. ExoTech is not Peter Warren's first bet, it is his life's work, and what he has discovered is almost unbelievable. Almost, that is. Because frankly, and this bears repeating, he has done it before. Now, the story of Peter Warren is still being written. The most important chapter, the one that changes computing forever, is the one being written right now. There are people who will one day say they were part of the winning team that made it happen. People who saw the pattern, trusted the evidence, and chose to stand on the right side of history. Whether you are one of them, that choice is entirely yours. Though we are pretty sure people like you have always known this. History is patient. Opportunity answers to no one. The door to ExoTech is open. We invite you, whenever you are ready, to reach out and join Peter Warren on his journey into the ExoTech universe.